Dear students, let us start the discussion today on the 19th May 2016 newspaper. Now, the first article is related to India-Iran relationship. You all know that Prime Minister Modi is about to make a visit to Iran. And in this context, let us analyze what are the binding points between India and Iran. You know that there are strong civilizational strengths with Iran, and energy and connectivity are the two major focal points now. So, after Saudi Arabia, before the sanctions were imposed on Iran, it was the second largest exporter for oil to India. The second thing is the Chabahar port, which is being developed. So it is going to provide an alternate access point to Afghanistan and also connect India with the Central Asia. And the third thing is, if Iran is taken into consideration, the fight against terrorism, especially Islamic State, the Iran and India have a common consensus. They are on the same page with regard to the fight against terrorism. So in this context, the India-Iran relationships are getting redefined now. So especially when the sanctions were imposed by United States on clandestine Iran nuclear program, and there was a voting which was held in IAEA. India has to vote against the Iran in IAEA under United States pressure. So this has really soured the relationship. At that point of time, Iran President Ahmadinejad, though he did not make any public statement about that, but it was clearly stated that Iran got disappointed with India's action because India was the most trusted friend of the Iran, and the same case for India in the West Asia. Now, again, India is building, there is an ambitious transport corridor that is called International North-South Transport Corridor. So the Chabahar port also comes central to this. And the connectivity wise, there was in the Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline, it appears it almost shelved because Pakistan was demanding for very huge the price for the transit. And after to this, Afghanistan is also becoming an important point for cooperation. So now, Iran, Afghanistan, India, they are looking for a trilateral trade agreement. So, but however, in West Asia, if you take, one way India has to balance the Sunni dominated Saudi with the Shia dominated Iran. And in between, you have the Israel, which is a Jewish nation. So India is maintaining a close relations with Saudi, and also Israel is the major defense partner, and Iran is also part of our connectivity and energy cooperation. How India can achieve this balancing act will define its relationships in this area. Now, Indian Express also covered the same article. So with Iran, historical ties and history of dithering. So whatever we discuss now, that is also been discussed over here. But he has mentioned about new pipelines which are coming. That is undersea pipeline between Iran, Oman and India. That is one thing which is being considered actively. And again, Iran has proposed India for Ashgabat agreement. In this Ashgabat agreement, the Turkmenistan, Iran, Oman and Uzbekistan are the partners. It is going to be one of the strongest energy coalition. So this is what is the extra point which it has covered. Now coming to the north by northeast. Now the Nepal, and it has serious concerns with India and its high-handedness and interference in its internal matters. Now, in this context, the author who is from Nepal, he tries to explain this situation. So, Nepal by and large is dependent on Indian economy and also the transit of goods from India. And Madheshi agitation, and after that, the blockade of the goods getting transferred from India to Nepal, it has forced the Nepal to move towards China and to sign a transit and trade agreement. So, in these circumstances, the author says that India has to revisit its Himalayan doctrine. The India's Himalayan doctrine even still is influenced by the 1962 laws of war. So in these circumstances, India is trying to insist on Nepal, Bhutan to keep them away from China. But however, the author argues that what India is doing on a larger scale, these countries are also following on a smaller scale. That is, India is looking for the investments from China. The same is the thing Nepal and Bhutan are also looking at. So, what he tries to argue is the development of connectivity across the Himalayas, either it is with Nepal or Bhutan, it will also help India to promote its trade with the China's mainland. So in this context, the development of infrastructure between China and Nepal is going to further decrease the Nepal's dependence on India. And the second thing is, the Nepal will be in a better position with regard to leverage its benefits from both India and China. So in this case, already from the mainland China to Tibet, there is a rail line which is being laid. So this rail line, it will be extended now to the Nepal border. It is called Qinghai Railway. And added to that, it is building a set of highways. So these highways are also going to provide for the free movement of the goods from mainland China. So the things here are, one is Kairung Highway, and the other one is Kathamat Highway or Kimatanka Highway. Just these are the projects which are being discussed during the Prime Minister Woli's visit to China. Qinghai Railway and Kairung Highway, Kimtanka Highway, which will provide for all-weather connectivity between Nepal and China. But how much practical is it? Now, understand it this way. India-Nepal has an open border. The China can never give the open borders between Nepal and Tibet. China has its own concerns with regard to the Tibet. And the second thing is, the China's port, our closest port is 3,000 kilometers away. And India's port is 1,000 kilometers away. And economic viability of the connectivity is better with India. So in these circumstances, it is mostly, I see this article as an assertion. Coming to the Tamil Nadu and election expenses. So yesterday's article we saw that the voting percentage has increased in every state due to the efforts made by the election commission. But however, election commission efforts are very minimal, or it was unable to curb the money power. It is also not possible because the problem lies somewhere. So the political parties, regulation of the political parties and their financing methods and keeping them open to RTI and bringing them under the audit of a statutory authority, all these can improve the situation and they can curtail the money power in the elections. Now coming to the Venezuela issue. Now we know that Venezuela is badly hit. Venezuela's economy is majorly dependent on the oil exports. As the oil prices have fell down, the economy is facing a severe crisis. So in this context, what is happening is this. Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, a pharmaceutical company, it has its subsidiary in Venezuela and all its funds got locked in Venezuela. So that's why this time it has to give its profit from 500 crores last year to around 30 crores this year. More than 60 millions were stuck in Venezuelan subsidiary. So what the government of India is proposing is, we will take oil in exchange for the drugs, and this is what is proposed over there. And the next is, President Pranab Mukherjee is visiting China. So here, it is an exchange visit. Xi Jinping has visited India. In exchange to this, our president is visiting China. So there are a series of visits which are going to happen in the short while. So in this case, India-China relations are considered. What President Pranab Mukherjee was saying is this: the terrorism, there has to be zero tolerance, and India-China has to work together on this. Why such a comment has come up? In the case of recent events, Masood Azhar, Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, India wants to bring him under the Taliban Sanction Committee in the United Nations. But the China has kept a technical hold on the matter. So from this we can say the China's cooperation is not complete and it is very sensitive to the concerns of its all-weather friend Pakistan. So in these circumstances, the President Pranab Mukherjee's statement gains significance. And the banks, you know that the Raghuram Rajan, he has asked for an asset quality review of all banks and revised the classification of NPAs and stressed assets. Because of this, most of the banks are publishing their losses. The highest in this list is the Punjab National Bank, which is to the tune of 5,367 crores. And coming to the Indian Express, bank on the brink. It is due to article is related to the consolidation of the banks. We have too many small banks, and these banks helping in financing our corporation and economic growth is not to the mark. And also they are easy to get acquired by some other company. So in these circumstances, consolidation in the banking sector is required. Already SBI has announced consolidation of all its subsidiary banks. So in this context, what the author argues is, along with the consolidation, the managemental change is also required. Already Indradhanush is announced by the government, but it is not sufficient. So the managerial autonomy and the government playing just the role of a investor and not managing or not interfering in its functioning will give a new life to these banks. And coming to the discipline yourself, it is related to the FRBM Act. On the FRBM Act, N.K. Singh committee was appointed. The N.K. Singh committee's objectives are this. Now, FRBM Act, according to is 3% of the GDP shall be the fiscal target. So this fiscal target was very unscientifically conceived. It means this was the target which was kept by the Western Europe countries, for the Eastern European countries to allow them into European Union. We borrowed just that particular target without any scientific validity. So, we rigidly adhering to this 3% of fiscal deficit target, it is creating hurdles to our growth. So, to what extent we have to maintain a band of the fiscal deficit, such as 3 to 5%, etc., based on the economic situation that has to be studied by the N.K. Singh committee. To what extent we can maintain the fiscal deficit targets linked to the debt flow in the economy and the counter-cyclical measures that are initiated in cases of recession, etc. That is why to look into these matters, N.K. Singh committee was appointed. In this context, remember the 14th Finance Commission recommendation. So what it has said is the FRBM Act has to be replaced by the debt consolidation and fiscal responsibility legislation under Article 292 of the Constitution. That is debt ceiling and fiscal responsibility legislation. This is what we need to discuss. I loved this article the most. The surely Mr. Jaitley. Here, what the author said is, the judicial overreach is due to executive inactivity. And second is, here there is a beautiful statement made by Mr. Upendra Bakshi. So, there are various non-enforceable rights are given under the DPSP. What the Supreme Court under its judicial overreach is doing is bringing them under the interpretation of the Article 21. So in this, the Supreme Court is converting human needs into human rights. So that is what is the judicial overreach, and it is good for the society according to Fali Nariman. So these are the articles for discussion today. Thank you very much. All the best. And we are starting our classes today and hope it's a big day for me. And yeah, we have changed our system of taking a class from basics to upwards I want to build, and every day I want to discuss these basics of current affairs in the classes too. So thank you very much for following this. All the best.